securing SDLC with using software composition analysis tools, why to use them, and what they can bring to the table. This talk is also known as Death by PowerPoint. I'm not very experienced speaker or PowerPoint designer, so I hope you survive this. So who am I? My name is Wojciech Cichon, and I'm alcoholic. Sorry, wrong notes. I'm actually a developer who one day found out about security and decided to learn slightly bit more than he knew before. And it turns out quite interesting subjects, and I decided to go deeper and deeper. I'm also a tinkerer. I like to play with various things, various technologies, learning new languages, sometimes build some random weird stuff using my Arduino. On the bottom here, you have pictures of the thingy. I had a problem with my son who was getting too close to TV, and he didn't listen to me. So I built this one, which turns off TV when he gets too close. So very secure, but yeah. So before we start, I have 2 questions for you. You don't need to answer to me. You can type in answer in the chat if you want. If you don't want, just keep those information. Keep the answers for yourself. We'll back to this later. So the first question will be how many libraries there are in your project or projects if you work for the bigger organization. Okay. The second question will be, what do you think? How vulnerable is your project? Okay. In 2021, Black Duck presented the annual Open Source Security and Risk Analysis report. According to that report, 98% of the commercial application uses open source code. Within last couple of years, amount of open source code in proprietary organization rose from 57% up to 3/4. If that trend will be if that trend will be keep going, one day we might have over 100% of open source code in applications. Okay, more statistics. We all love statistics, math, numbers. So let's have a look at the numbers. The average Java library has between 10,000 and 200,000 lines. Okay. Aspect Security one day analyzed most popular frameworks, and they discovered there are between 5 and 10 security vulnerabilities per 10,000 lines of code. That gives us between 5 and 200 vulnerabilities per library. So do you remember my questions from before? How many libraries are in your code, and what do you think? How many vulnerabilities do you have? Moreover, according to open source, according to OSRA report made by Black Duck, which I mentioned earlier, around 84% of the code which they analyze contains at least one known vulnerability. So, what do you want to do with this knowledge? There are 2 options. You can forget it or act upon it. Blue or red pill. So you're basically standing with the same choice that Neo was in a Matrix movie. So let's ignore it. We don't want to be superheroes or anyone like that. We just want to have a normal, simple life. What can happen? The answer for that will be breach. That also includes silent breach, Martin. So what are repercussions of the breach? Companies to pay fine. In UK, the amount maximum fine is defined by GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation, and at the moment is £17.5 million, or 4% of annual global turnover, whichever is greater. Additional thing, it will be impact on the business. You basically start losing you're losing the trust for the customers. You lose your image, so people will start looking for other companies more secure than you, because they're afraid of for their data. Funny fact: did you know 60% of the small and medium companies that were breached were out of business 6 months after breach happened? Okay, some of you might work for the bigger companies, so you are not small and medium enterprise. You think you're safe, but let's have a look at someone bigger, Equifax. When information about information about that breach become public, their shares went down by 70%, and that was immediate reaction. So I think if you'll be working for that kind of organization, you can, in the case of a breach, you can forget about your bonuses. So anyone wants to take a blue pill? No. That's what I thought. So let's handle it. How we can handle it? So we need to go through our libraries. We need to review our libraries. Check how old are they. Libraries obviously have a tendency to gather vulnerabilities over the time. Older libraries are longer on the market, and people might have had more time to search for vulnerabilities in those libraries. Other serious risks are unmaintained libraries. Even if someone found vulnerability in and reported vulnerability in that library, people who originally work on that library ditch it, and they're not gonna fix it. So if you have one of unmaintained library, you are on your own. So it's better to remove it or take over if you prefer. And another obvious point is you look for vulnerable libraries in your code base. How you can check? How you can look for vulnerable libraries? There are many places where you can check. You can check National Vulnerability Database. As name suggests, is maintained by American government. You have a common vulnerabilities and exposures. This one is maintained by Mitro. You have an open source vulnerability database. That one is maintained by Open Security Foundation. You also have a Chinese National Vulnerability Database, and many more. It's also good to have a look it's very good to look for more than one database when you review your code base, as different databases have a different reaction time. For example, average time between vulnerabilities published in NVD and CNNVD is over 30 days. And many things can happen over those 30 days. Okay, how do we score vulnerabilities? We have a very simple formula for that. Okay. Do you guys need the time to get familiar with the formula? Screenshots? No screenshots? No questions? Actually, I was joking. The formula is much simpler. It takes weights for each factors, which sorry. It takes predefined weights for the value for each factor, and those factors are things like what kind of access is required. Do you need to have a physical access to the device that run your application, or do you need to have access to a network where application is running, or that can be exploited remotely? How easy is to exploit it? What kind of level of authentication is required? Can this be by anonymous user, or do you need to have access to application or what kind of level of what access level you need to require to exploit it? How does it affect confidentiality, integrity, and availability? Then you collect all those weights, and there's a simple multiplication and addition. Okay, I accidentally switched to the next slide. So now we have vulnerable libraries. We need to remove them from our code base. What do you think? How much time do we have? Weeks? Month? Days? Anyone?
I hear things are being hacked in hours now. So
yeah, that's actually true.
For things like security patches are being hacked before they actually make it to the clients.
Yeah. If you have a look at my favorite example here, how much time you really have, is example of the Equifax. If you don't know, Equifax is one of the largest customer credit report agency. They're processing vast amount of personal information such as name, addresses, date of birth, shoe size, credit card numbers, and things like that. In 2017, Equifax was hacked. Hackers use vulnerability in Apache Struts. Now let's have a look at the timeline. 10th of March. It was a day when vulnerability was disclosed publicly. On 7th of September, Equifax reported breach. So breach happened somewhere between those two dates. Do you think you have that amount of time? Not really. On 13th of March, some of the security researchers detect probing. Someone was probing the system, checking are they running vulnerable version of the strats. Just check can they can exploit it, which was just couple days difference, which shows you how much time you really have. So you really need to you really from the date when vulnerability is disclosed. That's a time when you need to when you are basically at risks at risk. So it's worth. So my recommendation is to become more proactive and try to migrate as soon as possible, and try to don't get to a situation when you have old libraries. But okay, with a huge media coverage, Equifax breach looked like it looks huge, but really it was just a drop in the ocean. Here you can see the list of the biggest breaches. Can you see Equifax here? Anyone?
Yeah, bottom left.
Yeah. The size.
Still. Yeah.
The size of bubble is depends shows how much data was how many personal records were stolen, and only those yellowish ones receive the media coverage. So yeah, it's quite interesting. So tools, as someone mentioned on chat, this should be part of a CI pipelines. Yes, it can be. To do this, you need to use a tools to automate entire process. There are many free tools and commercial tools. Most of them work in a very similar way, which is first create BOM, bill of material, which is a list of all the libraries that are used in a project. Then finds identifier of each library. It might be name and version, or in a Java world, it's group artifact version. Then calculates it hash to check its integrity, which is quite important because sometimes attack my someone. Sometimes you may have an attack on place where library is where you're taking library from. That means you might pull the compromised version of the library to your code base, and then just checks the entry for that particular version of the library in one of the vulnerability databases. And obviously, last step would be collect all the information and generate nice, colorful report. So, what kind of tool would be good to start? Personally, I would say you can always go to OWASP looking for the help and tools. OWASP provides you OWASP dependency check. Is open source tool. At this moment, it has a support for Java and .NET, and experimental support for Ruby, Python, Node.js, PHP. I believe for the PHP it supports Symfony, but I don't really know much about the PHP world, so can't really say anything about that. I used it in my Java projects. It's really easy to use, very easy integration with my build scripts. It provides nice report in I think it was HTML page. I used it in Maven, but it also contains Jenkins plugin that allows you to have a better integration with the CI/CD pipeline and have a much nicer and colorful report. You can in the report, if you look closely, you can see list of the libraries, vulnerabilities that they contain, the score, CVSS score for the library, which I think is he marked as a severity, which gives you not give you a number, it's just classification, and what kind of vulnerability you have there. My recommendation is to always use free tools as a baseline before you start looking at the commercial tools, so you really know what you're paying for. But this is my personal thought. Okay, we are halfway. We are we are halfway through. So, but it's worth mentioning before we start. Before you start using your software, before using your SCA tools, there's one thing that you need to remember. They can show you only known vulnerabilities. So it might be if you don't have anything, it doesn't mean your code doesn't contain any vulnerability. So don't be sad, don't be disappointed. Vulnerability might be there tomorrow. Okay, I think it was a little bit quicker than I thought it will be, and I hope there's not many casualties of my death by PowerPoint. Do you have any questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So first of all, in my opinion, developers for pulling the random library code base should get slaps in his hand. But as and I'm totally telling this as a developer. But yes, as I said, most of the tools have plugins, Jenkins plugins, or even plugins for your build scripts. So it really shouldn't be much problem with integrating it. As everything, of course, depends on environment, but in general, it shouldn't be difficult. I come from the Java world. We use things like a Maven or Gradle for building our application, and there's just plugins for what's the name, for OWASP dependency check. So it's basically paste couple lines into a building script, and it was sorted. Does it answer your question?
Wojciech, so I was just going to ask. I also got a question for Wojciech about finding that difficult, as you know, that vulnerabilities are found and the code's already in production. How do you get that fixed quickly? Because a lot of big organisations like the one that we work in need budget to do that. Got any solutions?
You just need to assign more resources to that fix, and that should be your focus before you start looking at other things. That my suggestion. I know it's sometimes hard because you need to speak with the people who are who are not really willing to do that, not really willing to give you a budget for that. But that should.
I need to get you in front of your CISO.
My suggestion would be to get Taser and tase everyone till they agree it's important.
That would be including your boss, yeah.
Does that answer your question?
There's no answer for it, Wojciech, is there?
Okay.
But one thing, just to add to that, you can always point out that IT systems aren't just for Christmas. Once you've built it, you're responsible for it. So it's like having a car and not paying for an MOT. So you've got to make a case that it needs a maintenance budget. There is no such thing as a version 1 that you can just fire and forget and ignore. Because if it goes wrong, it'll cost way more than any budget to maintain it.
Yeah, but not everyone likes to give that budget.
I know you don't like it, but do you like paying for your MOT? Do you like paying for your car service? It's a tough. I know it can be a tough debate, but if businesses run systems, and you sometimes have to be robust with your friendly finance managers to say, if you're not investing in it, it becomes a liability, and that liability becomes a risk. And if that risk is bigger than the cost to maintain it, then what are you waiting for? So it's a tough argument sometimes. You have to, as a CISO or as somebody interested in security, you have to make it.
I think businesses are probably going to be paying a little bit more attention to this sort of thing now, because with all the recent ransomware attacks, apparently a lot of the insurance companies are either hiking premiums or refusing cover for ransomware attacks now. So I think it's going to become more of an issue for businesses, that they're going to have to think about this, because they can't just slap on an insurance policy and forget about it.
Yeah,
very good point, because it is actually getting harder to get that kind of cyber insurance cover. That you have to make a really, really good case for it.
Yeah, I'm totally struggling, because we've got a project just now to implement secure software development lifecycle, which we've pretty much done. But any fixes are needing done from that project's budget, which is okay at the start. But how do you maintain that going forward once the budget's used up?
We need to have a budget for that.
Yeah,
and that should come from I think we can just take it offline, Robbie.
it's just politics, Wojciech.
So what do you say?
It's politics, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Well, I liked your talk, it was good. Are you actually using that tool just now?
Which one? OWASP dependency check.
Yeah.
I use. We used it in my previous organization. We were, small company, and small companies doesn't have a huge amount of money to spend. And I use in a couple of my free projects, and I use in my current organization when I joined it, just to see how bad the situation looks like.
Can I ask where it gets its vulnerability database from?
LVD.
So that's updated constantly then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But as I said, it's worth to. I might actually have a look at that, but it's worth to have a look. It's worth to check the other databases as well. As I mentioned earlier, Chinese National Vulnerability Database managed to get vulnerability published 33 days on average before they are in NVD.
That's quite impressive.
Mm-hmm. And I believe the delay between is published by researchers till it gets into Chinese NVD, it was 13 days. So that means over 40 days delay between information about vulnerabilities is gonna go public till it's gets to NVD, which is if you have a look at the Equifax case, it's quite a lot of time.
Okay.
And I think you can put that bubble about the hacks and send to whoever is responsible for the budget, just to show them how big can be and how much can bring the company down.
Yeah,
If
we
people
bundle
think
it in. We bundle the fixes in with the results from the pen test, but obviously things coming out of the pen test take precedence. They always get priority. But I'm trying to get the culture changed that they need to start looking at this and with a higher lens on it. So
yeah.
it's difficult. That's where I need my security champions to step up.
Yeah, and talking about security champions, what are you gonna do talk for us about security champions?
Yeah, I'll come and talk to your security champions, no problem.
Yeah, right. Okay, any more questions?
Not a question, but there's a sorry. No, I was going to say it's not a question, but you talked about the amount of time it takes to from the vulnerability to the breach. Well, there's a story which I'll post a link to it in the chat. But Sophos did an experiment a couple of years ago, and they put 10 honeypot servers in different databases, data centers around the world. And it was only SSH. There were no vulnerabilities, but it does kind of indicate just how quickly it got latched onto it. But it was the first one to get attacked was Sao Paulo, and it took 52 seconds after it went live.
Nice.
And the next one was a higher 4 minutes 46. There's a whole lot more statistics in there, but it's if you want to worry somebody, it really does show just how people are scanning around and looking and finding these things.
Yeah, as I said, friend of mine recently created his own website. He is a lawyer in Poland, and before he started doing any advertisement, he actually can't do any advertisement of his page because under Polish law, as a lawyer, he can't do any paid advertisement. But I think every day he gets some logging attempt from various IPs over the world.
No, sorry, I was going to say it's horrendous. I mean,
yeah.
we see it a lot. We see many attacks, and they're always common protocol. RDP is the worst, probably followed by IMAP4. So I know that's more infrastructure than application, but
Yeah. Yeah, at least that's one good